Hi there, I'm Dee, and I'm the photographer at D6 Photography. This video is just going to show you how I edit an image from start to finish. This is one I shot just earlier today. We had a big photography meeting and we shot some models. I am using CS6, but I'm going to use steps that can be easily done in Elements, which CS6, as you should know probably, costs quite a bit of money unless you have an education discount, and Elements is easy for anyone to purchase, between $50 to $100 depending on if you get it for sale, and I highly recommend you get it because I love Photoshop. Lightroom also is great too, and I'll do another video with another Lightroom edit at a different time. But for this one, I'm going to do this one like I regularly edit in Photoshop. So first thing I do is open it. I shoot in RAW. So it should open up in ACR, which is Adobe Camera Raw, which is the first thing a RAW image opens into. And then you can do your white balance corrections and all that good stuff. I always correct my white balance in RAW or in ACR, unless I'm having really like inside lighting and stuff like that where there's different lightings, and I'll correct it as best as possible in ACR, and then I'll bring it in Photoshop and do more correcting on the color. On this one, like I shoot with Kelvin, so I prefer to shoot that way I can keep my colors correct in camera of how I like them to look. And hers is pretty much on point of where it was in real life. So I'm going to actually leave it alone on the white balance. The exposure is about where I want it to be, maybe a little bit brighter. I don't touch contrast. Sometimes I'll bring my highlights back down just slightly, so I don't blow them out, which my camera tends to do. My Nikon is a D7000, and it tends to blow my reds. And I always increase my shadows just a tiny bit. Like I said, I don't touch contrast, but I will do it this way with black going up on whites and going down on blacks, which creates a contrast, but it's very subtle. Clarity, I sometimes do. Depends on the image. When you mess with clarity, like when you go up, it looks really crazy. It sharpens up all those, it kind of gives that HDR effect. It sharpens up all those midtones, adds a lot of contrast in your midtones. And this way it smooths it out, which is good for like close-ups. If you go down just slightly on a close-up of somebody, it can really smooth out some of the pores in the skin tone to make it a little smoother instead of doing portraiture. But for this one, I'm just gonna leave it be at 0. I love colorful images, so I'm always boosting up my vibrance or my my hue saturation later on in Photoshop. The next thing I'm going to do is in Luminance, mess with my HSL, which is hue saturation luminance. This part cannot be done in Elements through ACR. You guys, it's limited on ACR, unfortunately. But I always bump my luminance up on my reds and my oranges. And just click P real quick. Like I said, I didn't do much. That was before, and that was after. Just kind of brightens it up a little bit. And I open my image straight into Photoshop, and I give it a moment to open. Alright, so now that it's open, I'm going to straighten out the image slightly, because sometimes I think I'm drunk when I'm shooting, because I'm so off balance on these. My line isn't as straight as I like it to be, and that bugs the crap out of me later, which is why I always try to get it right in camera, but unfortunately I do not. So we're going to try to correct it. Okay. And make sure it says original ratio. I was like, this is not looking right. I was in unconstrained. And I'm going to crop it down just slightly bit so it follows the rules of thirds just a little bit more. if it will stay in original ratio for me. Thank you. And as you see, I'm going to actually end up with some blank space over here. I'm going to use content aware fill on this part. If you are in Elements, you can easily go and clone this, but I go to fill content aware. I actually usually do this on a new layer, but it did not do that, so hopefully it does it pretty well, or I'll have to undo it. Give it a moment. And that looks pretty good. I think Photoshop usually does a pretty good job at that. So I like this quite a bit more than what it started out with already. First thing I do is I'm going to, well, I guess I'm going to do this more Elements way, so I won't be using curves since Elements doesn't have curves unless you get one of those plugins. But I'm going to use Levels, which is sort of like curves, but I think it's a linear version. It's a linear version of curves. It's flat. Instead of having the curves, you are a big line, and then you mess with your midtones, your darks, your whites through the levels. So to the left brightens your midtones, to the right darkens your midtones. I always bump them up just a bit. This will control your shadows, so when you go to the right, it darkens them quite. This is your highlights. It will brighten them up really bright. I'll be like blow them like that. I wouldn't do that. This will subdue your highlights. It kind of mutes them. And this will brighten up your shadows, lighten them up for you. Which is really cool to do in a matte effect, which I'll show in a few. So that was just really quick. Deepened my darks, up my midtones just a slight bit. The next thing I do is do a brightness contrast layer. I'm going to set it to soft light, and I'm going to bump my opacity down quite a bit, like 20%. So that was with that little bit of layer. I'm going to also go to hue saturation, and I'm going to boost my saturation up. But like I said, I love colorful images. Now, unfortunately, when you start doing saturation, as you can tell in her skin, it starts looking real orange and funky. I do not like that. So we're going to use a black brush and mask it off of her face. My eye's getting blurry, so hopefully I can see exactly what I'm doing without getting too crazy. Alright, so that bumped my color up really quick, before and after, with just those three steps really fast. I'd love to add a gradient map to add some color tone to it. As you can tell, I have a ton of them. This is after I had accidentally deleted some. Gradient maps works like this. As you can tell, this left side, there's red right now, there's white. Left will control what colors are getting applied to your shadows, so the darker areas of your image. So if you want to get some blues in there, or add some pinks, or a dark blue, or a dark purple, or something like that, I like to go, I'm a warm editor, so I'll go with a really dark brown color. And the right side is more of your highlights. So this will affect skin tones. And you can see it as it affects the image, what it looks like. So I like to make sure I keep this color in a fleshy colored tone, so it doesn't look too crazy. But I mean, the best thing about Photoshop is playing with it and experimenting. And then you can play with this part and bump it up. That's like your mid-tone area, or go down on it. We'll go up a little bit and see. Set it to soft light, overlay. You can determine on that what works for you. I'm gonna go at 30%. And it's a little bit of color, a little bit of warmth. And I love the way the gradient map looks. So really fast. And then last step I do is a dodge burn layer. And you can use dodge burn tools. I'm like, I don't know where they're at because I don't ever use them. Here they are. Dodge and burn. I don't do it. I create a new layer, set it to overlay. I get a black brush. Black brush is going to burn it. Wherever you paint, it's going to burn your image, which means it's going to lower the exposure or darken it. When you use a white brush, it brightens it or ups the exposure. That's the point of dodge and burning. It's at 100% right now, opacity, and the brush is at 68, but I'm going to lower it to 25, or it will get real dark really fast. So we're going to go and brush this on. And I mainly only brush it to backgrounds and to, let's give it a second, my brush is thinking. Alright, and to, like I said, to backgrounds and sometimes to clothing and even sometimes to highlights that are blown a bit. I'm going to actually brush a little bit on her hands. And it's really good effect to add a lot of dimension onto your image. You can control more where your shadows are and deepen them, and go back and mess with your highlights. Okay, now I got a white brush now, and I'm just brushing it on in different areas, but I'm going to go back with that black brush. I'm going to go down to 10% and then brush it back through this part right here. Let this baby think. There you go. I'm backed up to 25% again to brush down the side here and to brush back down this side over here. And I use my brackets to make my brush go up and down. Left and right bracket increases and decreases your brush size. Really quick shortcut on that. For this one, because I really like these stairs, I really want to enhance the color, I'm going to do another overlay. I'm going to burn, instead of black and white, I'm going to burn a color. So I pick the color of the stair and I'm going to enhance it quite a bit. By putting this color on overlay. It's not really dodge burning anymore because it's more affecting a color instead of my exposure. Hopefully I don't go too crazy out of the lines. I was never good at coloring in between the lines. Oh, and I'm at 10%. That's probably why I'm having issues here. I like to be a little higher, and then if I don't like what it's doing, I'll adjust. Or if it's too deep of color or like too stark, I'll go back in and adjust that opacity of this actually. So I'll do this a little bit down here. And I'm going to pull this color that's way down here and apply it on here really fast. I'm planning on creating more videos like this. I believe more people should know how to edit. There are no secrets. There isn't anything. I don't think there should be secrets about editing. I mean, everybody should know how to do it. Alright, let my computer think. Alright, now I've thought about it. Like I said, so look forward to more videos like this. I'm going to add a vignette around it. You do a gradient, set it to radial, reverse, or you can change it around this color right here, but I'm not. I just hit reverse and go in here and change the left side. I'm going to do a dark, you could do a black one, which is a normal one. I'm just going to do a dark brown for a little bit of a different look. And if you mess with this, it can kind of smooth out your edges. Here, hit OK, go to soft light, and boost that down just a bit. So here's a quick before and after. Just one moment. Alright, I only have a few seconds, so I'm going to try to explain how to do a matte finish really quick. I'm going to do 20 on the shadows, 50 on the output, which is that, and I'm going to go down on my midtone just a bit, and that is the finished product.